Revolutionary greetings. This is Haki Shakur coming back at you once again in another sacred space. I'm in Suffolk, VA, Suffolk, Virginia. I'm at one of the most historical, resistance, self-determined lands in our story. I'm in the Great Dismal Swamp, the home of the Great Dismal Swamp Maroons and the native indigenous nations of peoples. Take a look at that sign. This is also a historical site for one of the most revolutionary clandestine networks to ever be organized by our ancestors, the Underground Railroad to up north and to down south, to Mexico and South America, but more specifically to up north, where Harriet Tubman and all the great new African freedom fighters and ancestors, man. Take a walk with me. We're walking in the footsteps of our ancestors in the Great Dismal Swamp, the home of the Maroons of North America. A segment of ancestors that have been suppressed throughout history, whose story has never ever really been told. Man, this is years in the making right here, man. Like, I've been trying to get out here ever since I started studying the Great Dismal Swamps and the Maroons of Jamaica. So this is just another extension of the Jamaican Maroons, but this is the Maroons of the South, of the Southeast, what we call today New Africa, in the southern part of the United States of America. A little history, the Great Dismal Swamp Maroons. This area was heavily populated by the indigenous native peoples, the brown, the black, and what they called the red native indigenous peoples of this land. So many nations was on this land first, but around the period of 1670, 1680, this became the safe haven for our African ancestors who were brought over here in the transatlantic slave trade and who was brought to the Virginia plantations and started to work on the Virginia plantations through slave labor. So in order to escape that horrific system of slavery, these great ancestors migrated to this area, escaped to this area, ran to this area to find a safe haven and a safe place away from the horrific, dehumanizing system of slavery. I mean, they came from all over, from up north, West Virginia, Eastern Virginia, and Southern Virginia, because this is also the main gateway to the Underground Railroad of Harriet Tubman in that clandestine network. This was a stop. Some of this was a stop at first. This was a stopping ground and a stopping place. Let's take a look at this. As you can see, the swampy lands. The swampy lands, this is where it get its name from, the Great Dismal Swamp. The swampy lands. This is what the conditions looked like back in that time period when your ancestors escaped to this area. Now, and to the most important, the Great Dismal Swamp lasted from 1680 to somewhere around up into the 1860s to 1865 after the Civil War. But this place was a heavy area of participation when it came to the Revolutionary War first. During the Revolutionary War, this is also the area where a lot of Africans escaped to who didn't want to participate in the Revolutionary War between the British Crown and the guys who wanted to become what you know today as the nation state, the settler state of the United States of America. So this is the area where a lot of our ancestors refused to participate in that because it didn't benefit them or their freedoms. So they escaped to this landmass to get away from that war. And also this is the area where the British side of the Revolutionary War, they recruited a lot of Dismal Swamp Maroons to participate in that. Some of them did, some of them didn't. So that's just a little history also. Industrialization. I gotta get this in before I cut this video off. When these ancestors set up these individualistic settlements, economic formations, sovereign communities, and just a sovereign nation state of villages of mass individuals or ancestors from different tribes of Africa who formed what we know today as the Maroon. This is where the Maroons came up out of. So economically, this is also an economic spot that we can go back and learn from, because when they came to this land, as you can see, it was marshy and swampy and things of that nature. They were still able to develop an industrialization system to keep them, from being hungry, money, housing, and things of that nature. So they went into the businesses what you see today as the lumber business. They was chopping down the trees and things of that nature and creating shingles. If you know what shingles are, this is where the shingle business come from and things of that nature. It's like they did this to self-sustain a mini economy, a self-determined economy in these swamps. So this is also a place of influence when it comes to economics for New African people and the New African nation and New African Ujamaa and all those type of things, is that we can build our economy out of nothing. We can build our economy out of nothing, off of the land, because we're land people. It's in our bloodline. We are land people. Last but not least, it wouldn't be right if I didn't mention some of this great freedom fighter. This is also the area where the great freedom fighter and his military units, other Maroons, came out from to initiate military campaigns to protect their sovereignty, to protect the Great Dismal Swamp. Bob Farabee. If you don't know who Bob Farabee is, Bob Farabee came out in the revolutionary time, a period of resistance for Maroons around 1823 to 1825. He sparked military campaigns out of this swamp, and he also sparked slave rebellions on the plantations, because the Maroons would leave out the swamps and do clandestine military campaigns to raid plantations. They raided white plantations for resources, guns, weapons, everything they needed to bring back to the Dismal Swamp. Remember that ancestor name. Put them in your libations, Bob Farabee. Also, another great freedom fighter that's connected to the Great Dismal Swamp, the great Nat Turner. Nat Turner, because not too far from this area is Cortland, Virginia, where Nat Turner sparked off the Nat Turner Rebellion, killing over 55 white people, slave plantations, their wives, everything in their existence, wiping it out. It's a myth that, and legend, it's a myth and legend that Nat Turner was trying to get to the Dismal Swamp to create his own settlement, his own free community, once he had to escape after he sparked the slave rebellion in 1831, Black August. Also rumored is that a lot of Dismal Swamp Maroons came out the swamp to participate in the Nat Turner Rebellion. So they're saying that some of those individuals that participated in Nat Turner's rebellion were Maroons who came out, helped them, and escaped back to the Dismal Swamp. Because all of this is the 757, the 7 cities. It's all interconnected. And also, don't forget that the Great Dismal Swamp stretches all the way into North Carolina. So this had an effect on the New Africans and Africans in North Carolina. Man, this is so much potent, powerful history of resistance, man, that they don't teach our babies and they don't teach in school. So, man, please do yourself a due diligence and learn about the Great Dismal Swamp Maroons. Teach your kids about the Great Dismal Swamp Maroons, because this is a part of a history that's not going to be taught by this racist public education system. Last but not least, Virginia. For people that don't know, Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia had a mass population of Maroons. So there were Maroon settlements all across the southern upper South to the deeper South to Georgia, even stretched into Alabama. So this is why we call the South New Africa, if y'all don't get it. You see what I'm saying? This is where the New African Independence rose from. You know what I'm saying? Out of the Maroons' resistance movement and history of fighting back against our oppressors in the slave system and the capitalist system of slavery. Appalachian Mountains, I gotta throw this in here. Appalachian Mountain Maroons, they have a deep connection to this history with the story of John Brown and the John Brown raids on Harper's Ferry. They were trying to establish a Maroon settlement in the Appalachian Mountains of Virginia once Jim Brown, if he was able to defeat the United States Army, which we know he didn't accomplished. But we hold him in high regards because